Today on the Rise of the Challenge podcast.
And he joined the Marine Corps. They were never into that heavy stuff at that time. I was the only one that kind of ventured into that realm, but we were all still very close. He joined the Marine Corps. I saw him graduate boot camp, and I just couldn't believe my eyes to see him make that type of a transformation. I knew that it was possible for me to make that type of transformation because we were like kindred spirits. And that day I quit smoking. I quit everything. We were in California. I turned to his brother. I said, "Here, take these cigarettes. I don't want them anymore." He kind of was like, "All right, whatever." And I mean, I was the one who was going to die, like everybody knew Joe was going to die first. And exactly 1 year from the day, I was graduating boot camp myself.
Welcome to the Rise of the Challenge podcast. Joining me today, he's a military veteran and CEO and founder of Southern Cross. Whoops, I had your thing wrong. Welcome to the Rise of the Challenge podcast. Joining today, he's a military veteran and CEO and founder of Southern Cross Safety Academy. It's Joseph Malone. How are you doing today, Joseph?
I'm great, Alex. How you doing, man?
Doing good. We're so excited to have you on the show to talk about your rise to the challenge. What we like to do with all of our guests is go right to the beginning. Talk about where you're from and what you like doing growing up.
So I grew up outside of Chicago, like right on the outskirts. And as a little kid, I always enjoyed the woods. Where we live it's literally right where the woods begin outside of the city limits. And there's a lot of ghost activity and nefarious mafia activity back in the day. Also, I mean, currently even, just it's much different nowadays than it ever was. But I loved hanging out in the woods as a little kid. I was very adventurous, ran away from home inadvertently as like a little kid, playing in the neighbors' backyards. And as I got older into my teen years, I was influenced by a really negative group of older people and started doing some really hard drugs, crack, heroin, cocaine, and it just led me down a really nasty path for a while, which I eventually broke free of.
With getting involved with that group of individuals, was it more of the curiosity of what they were doing or trying to fit in and being involved with those activities, or what was really going on in that situation?
Yeah, it was girls. I think when I reflect back on it, because the guys were just these 50-year-old creeps and we really didn't have much of a desire. But then the chicks who were like a couple years older than us, who were like really hot, they were getting attention from these 50-year-old creeps, which they didn't understand, like when a 53-year-old buys a 14-year-old girl liquor and gives her coke, that dude's a scumbag. But they would be hanging out with them, and so we were lured into it by trying to be cool with them, which we never really were considered. But that just evolved and kind of exploded once high school started, because you got people in that demographic, that kind of circle, from all over the place now meeting in high school. And so we all kind of fed off of each other and it exploded out from there. But I would say it started with wanting girls to like you.
Did your family notice a change in you when you were getting involved with that group?
Yeah, absolutely. My mom was more objective about it in the sense that she saw me for what it was. She would always come into my room and flip all my stuff. It was like a jail, man. Like, not in the sense that my house was like a prison, because it was a very nice home, very upper middle class home, or probably right smack in the middle, to be honest. But she would come in there, toss my stuff, go through my drawers, find all these things, listen on the other line of the old phones, the telephones that were plugged in the wall to my conversations, have me take random drug tests, smell my face and look at my eyes when I come home. She always caught me doing stuff. And my dad, I don't know if he was in denial or what his story was, worked a lot, was always gone for the most part. But the few times that there was a confrontation with him about it, it was much more dramatic. I'll say that much.
When your mom was like going through your stuff, trying to get involved and kind of know what's been going on, did it ever make you think, I need to get out of here, I need to go a different path, things like that?
No, I was pretty pissed actually at my mom. And the reason behind that was I never thought that I was out of control with anything until I was already past that threshold. And that came, I got thrown out of two high schools. I got thrown out of my house for a little while. I ended up living with my best friend and his family for a period of time in high school. I never went to juvie, but I had to go through a juvenile behavioral rehabilitation program. So like every day, my school was like a juvie hall.
Hmm.
And when I started going to those programs, quite honestly, I wasn't that bad of a kid yet. I was smoking some weed, doing a little bit of coke here and there, just a troubled kid, just trying to find heartbreak, basically. I was always a hopeless romantic. And when I started going through those schools and those programs, though, that's when I definitely became a really bad kid, a really bad young adult, because those dudes and those chicks were like, the one chick got shot in the face my first day of school, like not at the
Ooh.
school, but she showed up. It was her first day back from being shot in the back of the head. Bullet came out the side of her face. Face is all paralyzed and shit. And that was the type of people I was going to school with. So now you got this kid who's from a pretty decent family and he's a little lost and he's influenced badly by some older people to being dumped right into the middle of I could be as bad as I want and I'm still the good kid.
Hmm.
So that really had a negative effect. Kind of like the whole if you go to prison, you don't really get rehabilitated, you come out worse most of the time. It was one of those situations for me.
Did it ever get dangerous for you when in taking those drugs, that kind of lifestyle? Did it ever fear that something bad was going to happen or it took you too far?
Oh yeah, man. All the time. I got beat up, jumped by like 20 people. They almost stabbed me to death. I've overdosed. I've seen people overdosed. I've lost friends to overdosing. I almost killed myself a few times. I mean, I've almost been kidnapped. I've been robbed at gunpoint. Every single bad thing except for being shot. And then I don't think I ever got stabbed or carjacked, but almost every single other bad thing. I got chased by the cops. I got in a small police pursuit, multiple police pursuits, actually. One of them ended up with me being arrested on the lawn of a school. One of them ended up with us getting away. I mean, it was crazy, man. When I see a 16, 17-year-old these days and I think about what I was doing, it's like really sad. I feel horrible for my parents.
Did you ever have that kind of reality check moment, or did it kind of continue even past high school days and it still was with you, like wanting to take those drugs, that kind of lifestyle?
So I knew I wasn't going anywhere fast. By the time I was 18, I'd already lost several friends. I was becoming very physically addicted to heroin at this point. My mom actually found a lot of heroin. I had all these different baggies. And had she not found that, I think I might have been screwed, man, because the more you do, the longer you do it, the more of a physical addiction that you develop. And that pain it is just, it's like burning in your bones. And there's just no way to really describe it, except for it literally feels like your bones are on fire. Every part of your body hurts. All your nerves are just being just ignited with embers. But it had my mom not found those bags, I probably would have been screwed. But she found those bags. I went through a really big sickness. The real big turning point was so I knew I kind of wanted to stop, and the third time I'm pretty sure I overdosed. I was kind of like, dude, what the fuck? So my best friend John, I grew up with three really good friends: John, James, Joe, and Justin. I had a few other really great friends as well, but we were the J crew. And he joined the Marine Corps. They were never into that heavy stuff at that time. I was the only one that kind of ventured into that realm, but we were also very close. He joined the Marine Corps. I saw him graduate boot camp, and I just couldn't believe my eyes to see him make that type of a transformation. I knew that it was possible for me to make that type of transformation because we were like kindred spirits. And that day, I quit smoking. I quit everything. We were in California. I turned to his brother. I said, "Here, take these cigarettes. I don't want them anymore." He kind of was like, "All right, whatever." And I mean, I was the one who was going to die. Like everybody knew Joe was going to die first. And exactly 1 year from the day, I was graduating boot camp myself.
Sometimes we're asked that fun question, what is that dream job? Before you joined the boot camp, what was that dream job that you were wanting during that time?
I wanted to be a wildlife photographer for like National Geographic, and I wanted to possibly also do like war correspondence.
Hmm.
So when you look at it, it's kind of funny how ties back to me as a child, always adventurous, always in the woods, always seeking some sort of thrill, which again, with the drugs even that was some part of it, right? Wanting to get girls to like you, doing drugs, being cool, pushing the envelope, taking it to the limit, being involved in all these crazy petty crimes. And so I really wanted to do something like that. I was going to go to Columbia College, the art school in Chicago, and basically become a photographer. I probably would have just ended up dying at some point from alcohol or drugs or something, but that was the road I was going to take until one day I just took a hard left and joined the Marines.
With the Marines, what is the biggest challenge you faced during that time, during like the first year of that?
You know, I've always been a really accepting person when it comes to strangers, extroverted. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt because I think most people are great people.
Hmm.
And it really shocked me that when you join the military, how juvenile the behaviors were. In the sense that I joined it being like, hey, we're all part of the same team. What's up, bro? Tell me about yourself. Tell me about yourself. We're all going to go to war. Hopefully, we all make it through. We're going to kill some people. Some of us are going to die. And let's just kind of like make the most out of this team in the meantime. That wasn't the case for a lot of people. They were very just like selfish and like diabolical, and they would act like they're your friend and then like talk a bunch of smack behind your back. That was a really hard adjustment for me to make, and it really ruined a lot of my ability to trust for an extended period of time, like a long time. And that was just really weird to me that people could be so conniving. You always hear about the brotherhood, band of the brotherhood,
Yeah.
and it's actually bullshit. There's a lot there. That brotherhood does exist, but it is very select and few, and it's almost like you know, binary in the sense of things that or quasar. I think quasars are the stars that. Um, anyways, point is that you have to. It's very clicky in order to get that brotherhood, and I have it with a few people, but I thought it was going to be much more grand than it really is.
Do you feel when you found out about the click aspect, it kind of changed your opinion on within being in it, what it's like for us on the outside to know what's going on the inside? Did it kind
Oh,
of be like eye-opening? Like, because you mentioned how some of the times we're hearing, oh, it's a brotherhood, but we're hearing it from being outsiders. You're actually inside the kind of the group.
yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in military culture that's just really hard for people to get. And it was hard for me to get too for a long time. But there's a lot of infidelity, a lot of, you know, just people think, oh, the military think our service. And I'm kind of always like, sort of, you know, and don't get me wrong, if anybody not in the military ever said that, I'd probably have a problem with it.
Mhm.
But I also just want people to see people for who people are. Just because you were X, Y, or Z for a job doesn't mean that you're a good human being. It doesn't mean you're a good person. It doesn't mean you're a bad person if you did X, Y, or Z. I know plenty of great people who were criminals, awesome, amazing stand-up people who were just petty criminals. And then I know a lot of people who were in the military, had these illustrious careers, and they were kind of some of the biggest pieces of shit I've ever met in my life.
Fitness is something that's important to you today. During this time, how was fitness for you in the training aspect?
It was difficult for me because I'm coming from a history of drug abuse and I didn't play high school sports. The hazing in my high school was to get teabagged by like the sports team. And I was like, that's pretty lame. I don't want to do that. Yeah, it was like really gay. And what's funny is my dad had a big problem with me because I was pretty good at football going into high school. I was really good at it. And then I dropped out of sports over summer break, and my dad was like pissed about that. And he didn't believe me when I told him that the guys were putting their nutsack on each other's faces. And then about a year or 2 years later, a bunch of kids from the sports teams got arrested and charged with sexual abuse for doing that. And so, not playing sports, shooting up dope, and literally weighing 118 pounds when I joined and went to boot camp, it was a bit of a struggle But that just goes to show anybody listening that you can do whatever you want in this life when you put your mind to it. I mean, I said I'm doing this. I became so emotionally evoked over the idea of becoming a United States Marine to join my friend John in boot camp and in the, those colors with that EGA, Eagle Globe and Anchor, that nothing else in the world fucking mattered to me at all. I gave it everything that I had, and I on paper I made it with flying colors, right? It was like easy on paper, but it took everything in me at that time. And you can do anything in this life as long as you remain dedicated, focused, and you're emotionally driven with a honest, pure end state. There's nothing that you cannot harness the energy, the power, the knowledge to do. So let that just be a testament. It was difficult, but in the end, looking back now, it was like nothing. It was like fucking nothing.
During your time as a Marines, what was the most challenging part you faced during your time in the military?
I'd say the loneliness, that was a big thing because again, being like a hopeless romantic growing up, a lot of that got destroyed in me through the years in the military, 13 years. And there were some really horrible relationships that I was a part of. In that meantime, I was physically abused, I was emotionally abused, cheated on, lured into having an affair with this married chick. And, I just became like lost in the sense of, relational guidance. I had no good mentors. I had a lot of bad leaders in the Marines, a lot of drinking. And that really just, and then the loneliness. I'd come home and my friends wouldn't understand what I was going through. I couldn't talk about it with any of my friends. That it was just, you felt like you were very isolated, and it became very dark and alone. And I spent a lot of nights by myself.
When did you know the timing was to kind of exit the Marines and kind of start the next chapter in your life?
So I got in some trouble for some really dumb stuff, like the most dumbest thing you could ever get in trouble for. In MARSOC, we have this pin that we wear on our uniform. It's like a SEAL trident, but instead it's like a MARSOC Raider thing. And I was in Marine Corps sniper school at the time, which is a very strict, traditional Marine Corps course. And they saw me wearing my pin and said, "Did you have an official ceremony for that?" And I was kind of like, "What are you talking about?" And so I got in trouble for some really dumb shit. After that, I lost my team, lost my element, went and I deployed back overseas in like an intelligence support role, like a support capacity for intel. And during that time, there was an accident back in the States that killed all the guys that I was in charge of. And at the same time, we were in Iraq. We had just taken back Mosul and from ISIS. And the Iraqi army was closing in on the Kurdish positions. Now, I'm not going to dive too far into it, but you basically have the Kurds in the northern part of Iraq. They're independent people. They have no formal nation. Then you have the general Iraqi government and military, which is Arab, and they've never gotten along. Saddam used to always massacre these Kurds, 5,000 of them in one day with a bunch of gas and all this stuff. They've just been oppressed their whole life, but they're great people. You got mosques next to churches coming out at the same time, giving each other hugs. You've got educated and driven, intelligent people who are peaceful. It blows my mind that we don't support the Kurds. They could, well, I know why we don't, is because they could bring stability to the Middle East. And God knows we don't want stability in the Middle East because all the major fucking war industrial racketeers won't be able to make their billions and hundreds of billions and trillions of dollars off of it. So I knew it was time for me to leave when we got the word to pull out of these Kurdish positions. And I'm like, why? Like, these guys fought for this land. It's rich with resources. They lost a lot of people fighting for it. The Iraqis ran from it. Why are we giving it back to the Iraqis? And they said, because our strategic policies, we support a one united Iraq run by the Iraqi government. So we're pulling out, and then we see an M1 Abrams US military tank flying a picture of the Iranian Ayatollah. Now, for those who don't understand what the Iranian Ayatollah or who they are, who that is, that's like the religious leader. It's like the Pope of Iran and the Shia movement for the Muslim faith. And they hate Americans. They want to kill all Americans. They say this all the time. Death to America. Like, they're very open about killing Israel, blowing up Israel, wiping off the face of the map. severing all the heads of all the women in America. I mean, they're very outspoken against the United States. Make no mistake about it. They are as bad as it gets. M1 Abrams tank, American tank, the Iraqi army heading towards the Kurdish position. So why would the Iraqi military be flying a picture of the Iranian Ayatollah? It was because it was Iranian military. And everybody knew that. It was the Iranian Revolutionary Guard fighting in conjunction with the Shia battalions, because you have Shia and Sunni battalions. It's just different religious sects within the Iraqi government. And the Shia were the ones doing all the work. And they were getting all the support from Iran, heavy equipment, machinery. I don't know if you remember a couple years back when Donald Trump killed Soleimani, General Soleimani from the Iranian military. Do you remember that at all?
I do not.
Yeah, so Soleimani was like the top dog, and we were on the battlefield with him all the time, but we were never able to do anything about it. And finally, Trump killed his ass. Thank God. Dude was a piece of shit. And everybody was up in arms about it, saying it's going to send us into war with Iran. No, that dude deserved to die. He was in Iraq. He was dicking around, doing exactly this, training Iranian Revolutionary Guards to blend in with the Iraqi military. Why? Because they were taking over the country of Iraq. They were using our resources and our manpower and our blood, our sweat, our treasure, our tears, and they were riding the coattail of our success, basically backfilling the gap and the void that we were leaving, just like we did the first time. Except instead of ISIS, this time it's Iran, which is even worse. And so when that tank, US tank, with a picture of the Ayatollah, blew up a Kurdish position, I was done. I was like, I'm done with this. This is just bullshit. And I never looked back.
Did you have an idea after that moment what was next for you or how you were able to start the next chapter for your life?
No, not at all. In fact, I was dealing with a lot of survivor's guilt, very depressed over the fact that I got in trouble to begin with, over such bullshit. You know, I had a really great military career up until that point, and everybody just treated me like dog shit after. And I started to become really depressed. At this time, my best friend John died, the one who I joined with or for to join. You know, he ended up dying. And I just started to spiral out of control with a lot of drinking, a lot of prescription meds. I was prescribed 26 medications at one point, antidepressants and all this crazy shit. And I was just like spiraling out of control, heavy, man. I had to get surgeries done. I was limped up. It just wasn't looking very good for me.
Did anyone kind of come to you to help you in these moments, knowing that you just left and knowing that the changeover from post-military is tough for soldiers? And did you kind of feel like you were isolated alone again in this moment?
Oh yeah. I mean, I had an overpriced, expensive apartment downtown Wilmington. Nobody ever came to help me. In fact, I begged my command for help. I told them I was going to kill myself, and they basically slid me papers and said, just do it after you're done separating. And there was a doctor, a neuroscientist who I was working with at the traumatic brain injury outpatient program, because you just get blown up car accidents all the time and get your bell rung a bunch. And I discovered that was a big reason for a lot of the way I was feeling and acting was just I've been concussed like a shit ton of times. And he fortunately was high ranking enough. He was a Navy captain. He was high ranking enough to take a letter to DC and say this guy's not leaving the military because he's going to seriously kill himself. And that bought me enough time to kind of stabilize myself mentally and emotionally. Wasn't very good in terms of relatively speaking. And by the time I did get out, I lost all my money, high risk options trading. I was still very erratic and unstable emotionally and behaviorally, but it set me up with good trajectory. I knew about neuroscience. I understood the quantum realm. I was being introduced to people like Joe Dispenza, Tony Robbins, Ed Milet, Earl Nightingale, Bob Proctor. I somehow stumbled across all these teachers and I started learning, and I was able to take the quantum science behind it, the neuroscience, the neurobiology, and combine it all underneath the teachings of these people. And so even though I was homeless, dead broke, $65,000 in debt, living in a tent and out of my truck on a beach, Onslow Beach in Camp Lejeune, I was at least now making progressive realization towards a worthy ideal, and that worthy ideal being myself, the maximum version of myself, what I call the true self. I was starting to make progress. I had basically stopped falling and I was leveling out, and now I was beginning to rise back up. And so that's what kept me going more than anything when I was officially separated.
What was the first thing that kind of got you excited about post-military? You talked about learning all these different things from these leaders, these teachers, but was there a specific moment after that that was excitement for you? Like, I can see this as my future, or this is gearing me to the next level of being in that positive mindset.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily the biggest thing was the freedom. So I had a broken stint after my first 4 years. I got out for about 16 months. I was going to paramedic school in San Diego. And then the Marine Corps came out with the special operations component, which they never had before since World War II. So
Mhm.
I joined back in specifically to become a MARSOC Marine. And the freedom you have, like the feeling, it is just a weight lifted off of your chest, off your shoulders. You could throw your phone in a fucking lake and just never have to worry about anybody calling you for anything again. I mean, the amount of phone calls you get for the dumbest stuff in the world, dude. Like, why is this person pissing out in town at 2 a.m.? I don't know. I don't care. Like, they're a grown adult, stuff like that all the time. So just the freedom in itself was just so, oh, it's so rewarding. It's so great. It's almost worth joining just so you could have that feeling once your contract's up. Not really though. I'm not serious about that. But that was the most exciting thing for me was to finally just have the freedom to breathe, to move how I wanted to move and go where I wanted to go and say and do whatever the fuck I wanted to say and do and not have to worry about some sort of asinine repercussion.
Did you feel less stress during that time?
My blood pressure was 160 over 90 for the last 2 years that I was in the military. 160 over 90. That's hypertensive. That's like I could have a fucking heart attack.
Yeah.
And that's like on average. It was higher at times, it was a little bit lower at times, but on average. And I know that because I had to get my blood pressure taken every single day for like an entire year because it was so high risk for my age group. And when I left, it immediately went right back down to 120 over 80.
That's it's crazy how just the change, like it taking yourself from a stressful situation, getting out of that, and you talked about the freedom, and I think a lot of people might can be in a similar situation where it's maybe a job, an environment that they're in, and they're feeling that stress, that build up tension, and once they leave it or they leave that individual, that friend group, you can kind of see a different like mindset for them. And you kind of mention it where freedom was such a big thing that you were missing because everything was so structured, where lowering that blood pressure kind of helped alleviate some of that, the momentum that was happening in those times.
Oh, yeah. And for anybody who's in those positions who have the ability to leave but are too afraid because of money or something, you need to get out of it because you cannot think creatively in a stressed state of consciousness. The brain will not allow you to function simultaneously in both stressed and creative. Now, your back could be up against the wall and you could have to fall back on the greatest level of creativity that you've ever had before in your life. But if you're basically digging yourself into the hole and you can't see the resources to get yourself out of the hole that are outside of the hole, you need somebody else to come along and help you along the way, which is why I'm a huge proponent of coaching and working with people who've achieved things that you want to get in life. If you want to be a millionaire, you go work with a millionaire. You pay a millionaire to teach you
Yeah.
how to become a millionaire. It sounded stupid to me for the longest time until I started to do it. And then I started to realize, wow, like Einstein even said, the mind which created the problem cannot see the resolution for the problem that it is lying within, or something like that. Being that humans are social creatures, we need help from one another. And so you cannot think creatively, you cannot problem solve. You make money by solving problems of the world and providing service and value of immense proportion. You can't do that when you're stressed out, living in a 9 to 5 dead end job. You must be finding ways to seek opportunity elsewhere. You must be finding opportunities to consistently grow and take advantage and move towards something. You need to be moving towards something, but you must be emotionally involved. Emotion, energy in motion. The Greek origin of the word, don't quote me on this, but it means something along the lines of, energy and movement is emotion. And so if you're not emotional about something, then you're just going to die where you're located at. You're going to live the rest of your life that way. Get the fuck out. Just take the chance, take the risk, the fear, the stress. You need that in order to push yourself beyond your comfort zone, which you've been laying in so lazily and getting comfortable with, but at the same time, you're distraught. Why? Because you're not fulfilling yourself. You're not making progress in your life. Get out of it. If you have the freedom to do so, that's what people in America don't understand. You have the freedom to do so. You have the freedom to do so. You need to move and get up and go and do something with your life because you're just playing it safe until you die one day. And that's not the way to live.
Talking about doing what you're meant to do, what did you feel your purpose was now to create or start or kind of fulfill that's missing? Was that creating your company, creating that business, creating a passion project that you wanted to start?
Yeah, I knew I wasn't going to work well for a company. I just no. And then I could start my own business. So why wouldn't I? And then I could become a millionaire, which why wouldn't I? Those were the thought processes that really started to fuel my direction as I started learning about conscious auto-suggestion and psycho-cybernetics. I don't know if you're familiar with these terms at all, but I would highly recommend you read the book Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. It talks about, or James Allen, as a man thinketh, whatever you think about in this life, in this world, every thought is an actual thing. It's energy that is emitted from your body, from your existence as a frequency. You are energy. You are an energetic matter in an appearing physical form. And when you think a thought, it creates a neural pathway in your brain. So it physically is already manifesting itself. The more you think about a thought, the more solidified that neural connection becomes, which means that in times of great stress, it's easier for you to fall back on that defaulted way of thinking, especially after it gets programmed into the subconscious. And if you're doing that negatively, then you're going to live in a perpetual state of negativity and dissatisfaction. I knew I wasn't going to be able to work for a company very well. I knew that these principles were founded in scientific law. So I started to apply them. At the same time, Marjorie Stoneman, right before I got out of the military, this is 2018, I got out in 2019. Marjorie Stoneman got shot up down in Florida, and school lockdown policies drive me freaking nuts. In the special operations community, we live in active shooter environments. We link up with unvetted locals, guerrillas, whatever they are. Nobody's talked to them before. We go out to these territories and we need to read these people, and then we give them guns, and then we train them, and then we go fight combat with them. And sometimes they turn those guns on us. And so we had to always be developing a fluid plan for an insider threat or an active shooter. When I saw that 14 out of the 17 were killed sitting inside of a classroom on the first floor, I was like, what are we doing? Why are schools locking places down when there's an active shooter inside? It's the dumbest thing you could do. Get out of the school. You're on the first floor. Even if you're on the second floor, if the shooter's coming down the hallway, jump out the window. Because guess what? That shooter's got about 5 minutes to live. And their sole purpose in life is to take as many people with them as they possibly can. What kind of an idiot just sits there and hopes, let alone somebody in charge of a bunch of little kids or teenagers? So I thought that, plus the police response to that was horrible. And a lot of police responses, no fault to them. This isn't their job. Their mission isn't counterterrorism. So I was like, man, I could really help out both sides of the coin here. I could help out schools in developing really effective emergency operations procedures. So I got certified with the highest international certification ranking that you could have in the security industry, a CPP, Certified Protection Professional. And with my background in my college education in Homeland Security and emergency management, not to mention my national registered EMT credentials and my rescue diving credentials and my firearms instruction, every single credential that somebody could ever possibly want or have to teach schools how to develop effective emergency operations procedures for active shooters and to teach law enforcement how to respond in a tactically proficient way to active shooters. I have. And I got out thinking people would be like, this is awesome. We need help with this. And that was not the case at all, actually. It was the exact opposite. All of them shut their doors on me except for one. And that school was a pain in the ass. I'll never work with them again. And none of the police stations wanted my help because that's just all ego. and they've got this because they have some training from somebody. There's a lot of ego, and I know I didn't bring any of it to the table because I came as humble as a human possibly could because I really just cared. And yeah, got shut down. And I started working with some companies, which gained me some momentum. And then now I'm working with individuals. I'm coaching individuals on how to become lethal with mindset, physical discipline, skill set ultimately. So mind, body, and then skill set. I like working with individuals in a coach setting a lot better.
With working with individuals, has it shown you a new skill in you that you didn't have over the last few years that you were going through the military, coming out of the military?
I mean, it's shown me quite a few different things in the sense of teaching civilians about a mindset of becoming unbreakable. It taught me a lot about how we're taught these negative belief systems, shut up and color in school, how the education system's antiquated. And really, it's opened my eyes to how much a select group of people want to control our population by villainizing masculinity and by decentralizing the nuclear family. I see things all over the world, all sorts of different cultures. I've seen a lot of government corruption, and witnessing how weak and passive the majority of the population is really concerning. So that opened up my eyes a lot. But in terms of like, special skills or anything, maybe, but I've learned so much about myself and about life in general the last couple of years. It's really hard to pinpoint one. When it comes to training, though, training is really basic, man. Mastering the basics, that is what makes a true warrior. Somebody, a master at something is repetition of the basics. Bruce Lee said, I do not fear the man who practices 10,000 kicks. I fear the man that practices one kick, but 10,000 times. And that is truth behind that.
Do you feel when you work with these individuals, they see the passion that you have for creating the concept with what you're teaching them, and it kind of helps them know that they're getting the right training from you because you have experienced things in your life and that you're coming from a positive standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody who works with me knows that I'm insanely passionate. I'll die for you. I will literally run into a building that's being shot up by a complete stranger, psychopath, and I will neutralize that threat and risk my life and risk my son having a father and my wife having a husband forever again, simply for the fact that I believe good triumphs over evil, and I will do that for you. And everybody who ever works with me, they know that very dearly.
You just mentioned your family. What's been the most fun thing about your family that you enjoy doing with them today?
And so my wife is just so badass, dude. Like she just supports me so much in everything I do. She's so strong and she just does like she's just like keeps me alive, man. I like it is just crazy. Her love is an action. She's a service type of love expressive person and it just shows all day. All day. It she doesn't stop for me and it just I'll do anything for her. I love just seeing her when she's happy and smiling or when she laughs because I know living with me is very stressful. Running a company, going up and down, left and right, doing what I do, just being with me can be very stressful. I've still got like a lot of weird ticks, like I'll mess up the house, but if the cups aren't the same direction in the cupboard, like I lose my shit, like it's like weird, I don't like yell, but it's an energy thing. With my son, dude, just like watching him learn a new skill. Like today, he was eating a new type of food with a fork, and he was like cutting it with the fork and then stabbing it and then eating it, and then just like learning and developing new skills. That's so cool. Although he needs to start using the potty, man. He's freaking 2 years old. He's still pissing all over the place, but he like waits till we're done and then he stands up and then he pisses everywhere. It's like, come on, dude.
You talked about throughout your journey that isolation was a huge part of your rise to the challenge. With your wife, is it easy for you to be able to talk to her about things that you are struggling with? Or do you have those individuals now that you're able to do that with and not feel isolated?
Yeah. With my wife, absolutely. You know, she knows everything there is to know about me. I do feel guilty a lot of the times, though, and so I don't confide in her necessarily because it's almost like I bring like 10 times the amount of baggage to the table, and that makes me feel guilty. And whenever I'm dealing with something, if I, you know, I just don't want to be a whiny, complainy husband bitch. Like, you know, I need to, there's a certain degree I think men need to just suck up and deal with. And it doesn't even matter, anyways, all these other things you're experiencing because your feelings don't matter. The past is the past, it's done. To sit there and reminisce in it is not love. It's not love for the people who you claim to love. And to have an overwhelming bout of anxiety is to falsely project fake expectations into the future. And that's not love. And so, to a certain degree, I do need to just tell myself to shut up and move forward and accomplish something throughout the day so that I can provide for my family and we can live a very amazing, you know, full life in terms of charity, wealth, experience, everything.
Something our listeners like to do is learn even more about the guests. When you're not working, what do you like to do for fun that maybe people don't know about?
Nothing. It's a problem. Um, I have a, and this is actually what my wife and I were talking about today, this morning. I have an inability to relax. I can't. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because I feel like I'm so driven to do something, but then sometimes I feel like I'm just busy and I'm not accomplishing anything. Other times I feel like I'm failing my family because I'm having too good of a time. I don't like being comfortable. And so I'm consistently inflicting adversity and some sort of pain on myself. And I don't mean like I'm hurting myself, but like, for example, I'm very strict with my diet and I'm constantly, I could call myself like I'm starving all the time, right? Because I'm just so freaking hungry. I could seriously gorge like 10,000 calories. I'm not even joking. I ate like not I ate this whole banana pie, the entire thing by myself, and ice cream and like a gyro or something. It was just like disgusting. And then I ended up like puking out. But I'm always inflicting some sort of adversity upon myself. And that creates a mentality and a lifestyle of not being able to relax. You know, I have my goal is to make right now as much money as I possibly can in this life by providing as much of an immense impact on the world as possible. If I saved 100,000, a million lives, and made $0, okay, cool. But I have a family, and that means a lot to me, and so I know that they need to get paid, not me, but my family needs to get paid. And money's a tool. I don't worship money. But money means that you can give to more charities. And I want to show my son that no matter how much you have, we give a lot of our money away now to charities. And I have for quite some time. Why? Because I'm showing my son that it's not the money that makes the man, it's the service that makes the man. But the money usually comes following the service. As long as you're smart and you recognize the fact that money's a good thing, it's a tool. People have this negative idea about it and then they wonder why they don't have any of it. Well, imagine if you liked a girl or a guy or whatever, and then your opportunity to meet them comes up and you're like a jerk to them. Of course, they're going to be turned off and repelled by you. Same thing with finance. Money is an amazing thing. It's a great tool. It can help you fly private jets, travel to exotic foreign lands, to give to charities, to start a charity, to start an orphanage, to help kids being sex slaved, you know, trafficked. There's so many amazing things that can come out of that. You can build communities, you can build jobs, you can build opportunities. All of that can come from providing immense service. When you can solve a problem in the world and provide an immense service, you get rewarded for that. And when you get rewarded for that, you need to make sure that you reciprocate. It's the law of reciprocity. And that's like my major goal right now, because everything else I've really accomplished in my life. The most difficult thing for me thus far, and it's waning, it's getting easier, but has been financial security and financial freedom. That's why that specifically is a goal of mine. But if I could teach everybody in the United States how to defend themselves against violence and violent crime to where violent criminals couldn't take advantage of the weak and innocent, oh man, I'd be broke dead on the streets. I don't care. As long as my family's taken care of.
The final question I'll ask you for someone that's listening to this interview based on your journey and experience, what tips or advice would you give them to overcome obstacles, accomplish their goals, and rise to the challenge?
You need to know what you want. You need to take time and write it out on a piece of paper, journal it out, just scribble, man. Just scribble. Stop doing drugs, stop smoking weed for a while. Just feel whatever it is that your conscious is making you feel. And then you got to express that in some constructive way. For me, it was the journal. I journal all the time. And by just writing random stuff down on a piece of paper, it organizes itself. Kind of like Moses told the Jews in the desert, you guys prayed to God for rain, but you don't even dig ditches. And then when they dug the ditches, they received the rain. You've got to be manifesting your ideas into something, paper. And then you can create some sort of a general direction. Don't paralyze yourself with analysis, but just create a general direction and then find somebody who's created that life for themselves or accomplished that goal and attach yourself to them, fly across the country for them. I've flown across the country and I drained my whole life savings just to meet with mentors who could teach me things about life and valuable lessons that I can carry with me forever. Invest in yourself always.
Joseph, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about your rise to the challenge. You're inspiring so many people, and we are excited to see what the future looks like for you.
Well, thanks, Alex. I appreciate the time, man.
Tune in next time to hear my next guest talk about their rise to the challenge. Remember to follow and subscribe on all major audio platforms. And make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to get full-length episode in video format. What path do you take to accomplish your goals? You decide.